Last night we learned the FBI was dropping its legal battle with Apple over the San Bernardino shooter's phone. The government had been demanding Apple create a back door to access the phone's data. Apple was refusing. But this week the FBI announced with few details it had gotten access to the data with the help of a third party. Joining me to discuss this and other things are Martha Coakley, former Attorney General of Massachusetts, now an attorney with Foley, Hoag, and legal advisor for DraftKings. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. Good to see you. Martha, we're also joined by Brian Kelly, another former, in this case, assistant U.S. attorney, now a partner at Nixon Peabody. You recognize him from Bulger days. Is that okay to keep saying?
Sure.
Sure, why not? And Dan Primack, senior editor at Fortune magazine. Gentlemen and lady, good to see you all. Let's start with the iPhone thing. What's the moral of the story? It seems to me it's an embarrassment for the FBI. It turns out that they had another route, yet they got involved in this protracted high-profile fight with Apple they never had to have, no?
No, I disagree. I think that they took the route that you should take, which is go to a neutral magistrate, have probable cause, demonstrate it, and follow that process. That when Apple says we're not going to do it, that's when they say, well, okay, well, what else is available to us to do?
So as a former U.S. attorney, why should any U.S. attorney who goes before a judge in the future ever get their motion granted like it was in San Francisco? Why can't Apple or an Apple-like company say, just give them time? They're going to find a back route just like they found in the Apple case.
Well, this is a pretty unusual situation, and one would think they would have explored these avenues before making the motion and bringing it to such a point. But who knows? Maybe because of the litigation, because of the attention it brought to it, somebody came forward and said they could assist.
Yeah, but go do the role-playing with me. I'm the judge. You're the guy next week who's making a motion. And I say to you, excuse me, Mr. Kelly, just wait a little while. Work a little harder, just like they did out there or you did out there in San Francisco, and then see me in a month.
Well, the judge probably couldn't be happier because now it's moot. They don't have to get it reviewed on appeal. Her opinion stands. So I don't think they can just in the future refuse to decide motions. If a controversy is brought before them, they have to decide. That's their job.
But it would make your job harder, would it not?
If
the precedent, I mean, it's not legal precedent, but what happened in California would make the job of somebody like you in your former life harder with the same kind of request, yes?
On this particular issue, yes, it would, but
Okay.
not on all issues.
You know, you tweeted, has anyone considered that this is just an ingenious marketing campaign by Apple to get people to upgrade to newer iPhones? I assume that's half tongue-in-cheek or
Half
not?
tongue-in-cheek, but look, if I had, because the FBI has said this is specific, they actually first said it's specific to this guy's phone, which isn't true. They meant to this particular model. I guess it's an iPhone 5C and an iOS 9. If you have that and you're concerned about security, you're probably upgrading today or going to the store and buying a new one.
What I'm not clear about, my initial reaction was, boy, Apple comes out as the tough defender. On the flip side, for those that care about this kind of privacy, it's also shown there's a way to crack into the phone. That's not good for Apple, right?
It's not good for Apple, and you would assume that there's a bunch of people, hackers kind of around the world, who saw what the FBI said yesterday and said, oh, we can actually do this. We just have to figure out how to do it.
You know, Apple has said they were hoping that the government shares with them how they got into this phone so they can make the phone even more secure. Should the government share the information?
No, that's ridiculous. I mean, Apple, as a marketing move, I think, refused to comply with a lawful court order, and now that the government has figured out how to actually accomplish it without imposing upon the courts, there's no obligation to share that with Apple.
I love the look on your face, by the way.
Yeah,
Should they share it?
Probably not, and unless they're forced to, and I don't think they will. This is, though, about technology that's always going to be ahead of government, I think. This debate's going to continue. We're going to see it again, and we're going to continue to have an important discussion, because next time it may be the phone of someone who's still alive, who asserts Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, unlike Apple.
I'll disagree, by the way. I think they should share it with Apple.
Why?
They should, because people do put a lot of secure information on their phone. And what the FBI has now said, and particularly since they've said a third party helped us without identifying that third party, if I am someone concerned about security, hackers are now going to try to figure out a way to access these phones. And if you don't share that with Apple, if you can't, there's a lot of security here, corporate security here, which the FBI is saying, good luck to all of you.
But the flip side is, so the government's going to help Apple make it more difficult for the government to get into the phones when they need to get into the phones?
Or the government's going to make it a lot easier for American citizens to maintain their privacy on their devices.
His head's going to pop off, yes?
No, I mean, look, if it's a separate example, if the government wants your handwriting exemplars and you refuse and they make a motion, and then all of a sudden they find a witness who will give them all sorts of letters that you've written so they have the information, and they go into court and say, hey, it's moot now. We don't need the exemplars. We've got a witness. There's no obligation for the government just to front its witness to
You're
the
not saying
defendant.
there's a legal obligation.
Not legal. I'm saying more. That's in an individual situation. I understand, but we're talking about. I've got an iPhone in my pocket here, which is actually the same model and make. Technically, that should concern me a little bit, and I have nothing to do with this.
I was looking at your photos today. Actually, they're great.
This is a technology issue, and Apple's, said we're the technology wizards, and so let the technology figure out what are the problems with it, and can people breach it?
Can we go from the sixth largest company with largest market value in the world, first, pardon me, to the sixth, which is GE, welcome to town. Joan Venaki starts her column in the Globe today, I think. GE's warm welcome to Boston is getting warmer. And she lays out some of the facts. Forget the $125 million from the state, $25 million in property tax relief from the city, $100 million to replace the Northern Avenue Bridge. And now it's possible, not certain, that GE, pretty wealthy company, is going to get rent-free headquarters in South Boston. Is that not too much, as great as it is to have GE in town?
Well, the questions I would ask is, we should have learned our lessons on these things, whether it's a studio in Rhode Island or it is the solar industry. Government, if you're going to make those bargains, you need to ask, what's the payback on this? Is there a clawback? What are the taxpayers getting for this? And look, what's the word here? Transparency. What is this bargain for? Everybody's happy GE's coming. I'm glad they're coming. I think it's good. But you can't have winners and losers in this, including taxpayers, without being transparent.
Well, it seems to be very few guarantees. When Jeff Immelt came in town the other day at the BC Executive Club, just take my word for this. We're going to give back for any dollar you think was invested in GE, you'll get back 1,000-fold. Is his word enough, or do we need more assurances like Martha Coakley's talking about?
Well, presumably somebody has analyzed this and determined there are collateral benefits that are going to accrue to the city and to the state that justify this. And the way I read it, it's not that it's going to be free, it's going to be negotiated. So
well, it could be free, though. There's no guarantee that they're paying rent, right?
I guess that's one end of the negotiation, but hopefully they don't.
Actually, it goes beyond that. Actually, if you read the agreement, it says that outside of things like heat and utilities, et cetera, and certain tax abatements for property tax, it will be free. They don't have to pay anything addition. That's what's in the agreement.
Well, some of the city people say it's up in the air, but the language is what you said.
Yeah.
Did we have to give this much to get GE to come here? They allegedly want big brains. We have them.
Yeah.
They want to be in Boston, in the middle of the city. Did we have to give as much as we gave to get?
I don't know, but what I'm guessing, and I'm just guessing, I'm not the politician here, but I'm guessing that what you're going to see come out in the next couple of months, you'll probably hear what GE actually asked for, and you'll hear Boston say, but we gave them this. They asked for the moon. We gave them a little less.
Well, I also want to get back to your point about what assurances you get. GE is elevated, and again, I think it's great they're coming to town. They've elevated tax avoidance on the federal and state level to an art form. Didn't pay any federal taxes for 5 years. In fact, got a refund. The Housatonic in Western Mass, Western Mass,
do know it well.
Still polluted. They still can't
PCBs in the water.
cut a deal. When I asked both the governor and the mayor, who were intimately involved in this process, did they ever discuss with GE whether they were going to absolutely pay state taxes? They said it didn't even come up. Is that acceptable?
I still think that the idea of this bargain has to be thought through, thought out, and what's going to be given in benefits to GE, and what do we see in the long run? And more importantly, in 10 years or 20 years, how do you measure it? And then is there any kind of clawback or some way to say, we gave you all these benefits, but we're not getting our end of the bargain back? That's what this is about. Everybody wants them to be here, but you can't just, do this and give them
Did they do
too
this?
much.
Did they do this, Brian Kelly?
I don't think there's
I
any
don't-
evidence of that, and I think Martha's right. Time will tell whether this was a good bargain or not.
Okay, let's talk about something that you're a little bit involved in, DraftKings. Now, you're representing DraftKings, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Did you ever talk to your successor about this at all before she promulgated these final regulations?
I did not, because
Anybody out of your office talk to anybody in her
there
office?
were lots of people in Boston and who talked about regulations, and I've worked with people around the country, but I've been advising them since last September.
So here's my rule of thumb, and so my cynical rule of thumb in these circumstances. When an attorney general, any attorney general, promulgates regulations for an industry, and says they're the toughest in the country, which is what Maura Healey has said, and the industry itself says, this is great, we're going to comply, something's wrong with this picture. Am I wrong to think that?
Yes,
Why?
because first of all, they're the only regulations that anybody has promulgated. They took a long time. They are very thorough. They're very complete, comprehensive. They address all the areas the AG said she was concerned about. And there are a lot of regulations in there that DraftKings and others aren't happy about.
So is my cynicism ill-founded, if that's a word, Brian?
Well, I mean, the Attorney General has repeatedly said it's legal, so if she wants to regulate it, she can regulate it.
Is that why they're happy? Because unlike New
I
York
think
and
that
some other places, Maura Healey didn't go the illegal route.
I think they're happy because they're still in business here in Massachusetts, and they should be happy for that. I mean, I've got some questions about some of the regulations, but yeah, they're able to operate here. In New York, for example, they can't, so that's a problem for them.
Or they agreed to now in New York not to while this is decided.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Brian, you
Good to
as
see you
well.
as well.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Take care.